Hey everyone, and welcome to the GameScape. My name's Jeric, and today we're going to be looking at Phoenix Point Year 1 Edition, where I'm going to be giving you my top 10 tips for new players. Hopefully you guys will get some useful information out of this, and if you do, it's always greatly appreciated if you could support the channel by giving that like button a click. That helps the channel get recognized by the YouTube algorithm. Now, without any further ado, let's get right into it. This is Jeric's Top 10 Tips, Phoenix Point Edition. All right, tip number one is you always want to be doing things. You don't want to let your teams or your ships sit idle. You don't want your research to be sitting idle during this game because you're always on the clock. This game ends when the population of the world reaches a certain threshold. That threshold is dependent on which level you chose when you started your game. For a veteran game like this one that you see here, that level is 10%. So the population is always declining in this game because of starvation, because of Pandoran attacks, etc. So you don't want to be wasting the time that you have to get to the final end of the game and get it beaten. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to always be researching something, okay? This is a brand new game. I just started it. I haven't started up the GeoScape at all yet. We've got just one thing that we can research. This is atmospheric analysis. So we want to queue that up. We want to let that run while the GeoScape is progressing. Another idea is that you don't want to necessarily waste time researching things that you're not going to use or that you don't need right away. One of those things is going to come up right pretty much after atmospheric analysis is done. You're going to get two new options. The first one is going to be human population census. You don't need that right now. What that does is it just puts the countdown timer up here in the corner where you can see the current world population, and you can see a couple of little skulls there where it shows you this is where the doomsday ends. Right now you've got time. Don't waste time researching that. Instead of researching that, you're going to have another one at the same time called Haven Recruitment Protocols. You want to grab that one instead, because what that's going to do is, coming back to the GeoScape here, as you explore these sites, you're going to be finding havens from other factions in the game or their cities. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to recruit troops out of those havens that are already sometimes equipped, depending on the level that you're on, or at least they're available to be recruited. So that's one of the ways that you're going to get your team built up, and that's going to lead us to another thing that's going to be useful in not wasting time, and that is to always have two teams ready to go, okay? Even if you've only got one plane, you still want a second team ready to go. And the reason why is, let's say we fly over to this haven and we take a mission and our guys get beat up, right? That happens. They're going to get shot, they're going to get hurt, they're going to have to spend time healing at the base at Phoenix Point. Well, you don't want your plane sitting idle necessarily while they're healing. So if you have a second team ready to go, what you can do is you can bring your wounded guys back, you can drop them off, and you can pick up your second team, and then you can go explore this site, etc. Now, how are we going to get another team? Well, that's pretty easy. We already talked about Haven Recruitment just a moment ago. The other way that you're going to find to get new recruits is going to be here on the personnel screen. So right now, like I said, I have not advanced the timescape at all, but after a couple of days, you're going to have a new option pop up right here between personnel and memorial. It's going to be called recruitment. And if you click on that, you're going to be taken to a screen that's going to show you between 1 and 3 new recruits that are available to be hired. The nice thing about hiring out of that pool is all they cost is food. When you recruit them, you're going to pay a certain amount of food, and then this -5 would turn to a -6 if you grabbed one new soldier. What that means is that your soldiers are eating 5 food per day, or it'll be 6 food per day with 6 soldiers, etc. So they're pretty cheap. The downside is they don't come with any gear or any training. They're new rookies. They don't have any skills. They have just base attributes that are dependent, again, on the difficulty level that you set your game to. So you have some work to do to maybe get them equipped. We're going to talk about that in just a minute too. But that's where you're going to get your second team going. Now, right now, we've only got 500 food. Depending on your level, it might cost anywhere from 200 to 350 or more food to recruit a soldier. So immediately, it's not going to be an option to get a full extra team ready. But you want to be building toward that as much as you can and still be progressing forward. So kind of corollary to that is you want to get a second aircraft as soon as you're able to. Now, that's further down the road. Vehicles in this game, especially aircraft, are really expensive. You have 1200 material and 150 tech to buy a new manticore, and it takes quite a while to build. Now this number here, this build time, that'll be reduced when you start building more fabrication plants in other bases that you gain. You're going to find new Phoenix Point bases all around the world that you're going to be able to activate, and you'll have more room to build more facilities. We'll talk about that in a minute too. But the build time will go down, but the cost doesn't. So you're still looking to get 1200. We don't have 1200 right now. We have 700, and this is on a veteran level game. Even as a rookie level game, you don't have enough to build a new manticore right away. So that's something that's going to come in time, but it's something that you're going to want to get as soon as you can do it, because that's going to give you even more flexibility on the geoscape. You'll be able to have 2 planes out and running with 2 different teams. At that point, you'll want a 3rd team ready to go at your base for the same reasons. If one of those teams gets into a fight and they get hurt, you can bring them back to Phoenix Point or some other base, and you can scoop that 3rd team while the 2nd team is healing, and you can continue your exploration. With 1 plane, maybe your 2nd plane is out with your 1st team and they're doing storyline missions or whatever it is to advance to the end of the game. Tip number 2 is that you can move equipment from one soldier to another, even if those soldiers are not in the same place. To illustrate that, I've got a game loaded that I've been playing for a little while. I'm a decent way into it. I've got a manticore sitting here with 1 team on board. I've got a Thunderbird here that I've also purchased. This Thunderbird, you can see, is on its way up to the Synedrian Haven, so it's in transit. So if we look at the manticore, I will illustrate this. We've got some soldiers on the manticore. One of those soldiers is Kirsty here. Kirsty's got, you can see, some Synedrian armor that's pretty nice. So what we can do is we can take this Synedrian armor off of Kirsty and put it in here into the object pool, into the equipment pool. And then if we go back to our Thunderbird, we can look at our assault trooper here and we see Ryan. Well, Ryan just has regular Odin body armor. So let's say Ryan is moving into a fight that we expect is going to be pretty stiff. We want to give this particular body armor to Ryan just to make sure that she's a little bit better protected. All we have to do is drop it on her. Even though Kirsty and Ryan aren't in the same place, they can still trade gear, which is maybe not the most realistic thing, but it's very, very useful to you, especially in the beginning of the game. And the reason why it's useful in the beginning, because it would seem at first like this would only be useful if you are running more than 1 plane, is that it allows you to forego buying new equipment for your new troops that you're recruiting, and you can just save up for that new manticore right away, and you can just sprint to having a 2nd plane. Now it's going to take you a little while to build that plane, and that's okay, but if you focus on getting the plane first, then you're going to have it out and running around as quickly as you possibly can. And again, that helps you with not wasting time. If you can have 2 teams active instead of 1, you're just going to be so much better off. The other reason that this might be useful is, as we demonstrated, maybe you've got a few good pieces of equipment and you want to make sure that those equipment pieces are getting utilized in each mission. You can be switching them back and forth between your 2 teams. So that's a viable alternative as well. All right, guys. Tip number 3 is losing soldiers is very expensive. That might seem pretty obvious, but I just want to talk about it just for a second because it's expensive in more than just one way. The first way is obvious. You may not be able to get all their equipment back. There are different missions where in some missions you get to scoop everything that's left lying on the ground at the end of the mission. There are some missions where you don't get to do that. And if you lose a soldier on one of those missions, the only thing you're getting back from that soldier is what you managed to actually go physically pick up off of that soldier and carry out with you. Now, that might be an issue because you may not have enough free slots on your remaining soldiers to carry everything that soldier was carrying. The other problem is that the armor doesn't drop on the ground. At the end of the mission, you may or you may not get the armor back in your object pool, in your equipment pool. My experience has been more often than not, you just lose the armor. I don't know if it's a percentage-based chance or if it's just bad luck on my part, but usually I don't end up getting the armor back. Sometimes you do, but most of the time I haven't. So that's something you want to be really careful of, because yeah, armor is really expensive to replace. If we go into the manufacturing screen, Eaton here has a full suit of Odin armor, which is your basic assault armor. And a full suit of armor with all three parts, you're looking at 325 materials and 41 tech to build that. But it's not just the materials and the tech. I mean, those are a factor. But the other thing is it costs time. Now, I've got a couple of bases. I've got a couple of fabrication plants already in this game, and it's still looking at 21 hours to replace those three body parts of armor, which is time that you're not producing other things that might be more important. So it's not just equipment cost. There's also equipment manufacturing time that's an issue. And it's not even just equipment that's the problem. If you look at these soldiers, especially a trained soldier, you're investing a lot of time into these soldiers. These guys are going out on missions. They're gaining skill points to gain levels, or getting experience points to gain levels. Each time they gain a level, they get a certain number of skill points. And they also get a certain number of skill points for completing a mission. And those are used to buy up your stats. They're used to buy these abilities. You might even have invested some skill points from the Phoenix skill point pool, which is just the pool that all of the soldiers can share. And so now all of that work and time has been lost as well. And you're starting out with a new rookie who now has to be leveled up again and has to go through a whole bunch of missions to get to where the soldier is that you just lost. And so you don't want to be wasting a bunch of time having to retrain troops because you were careless with the ones that you had. So, and that's really what this is about. This isn't about saying don't lose troops, because that's self-evident. What this is about is be careful with your troops. Make sure that you're making good decisions with them. Make sure that you're putting them in cover. Make sure that you're not flinging them out way ahead of everybody else where they're going to get in trouble and nobody's going to be around to help them out. There's even sometimes the temptation to split your party if you have multiple objectives. This kind of comes into play a lot in like a Pandoran nest mission, because those particular missions, it's cramped. The corridors aren't very wide. You've got two objectives because you have to find and kill two mist sentinels. And there really is the temptation there to split your party 3 and 3 and try and go find them both at the same time, because it is kind of tough to get 6 people moving down those narrow corridors efficiently. The guys in the back are really just not really doing much. And so it feels like you're kind of wasting their potential. But what I've found, because I've done this and learned the hard way, is that if you start splitting your team up and you do 3 one direction and 3 the other direction through these Pandoran nests, it's really easy for 3 soldiers to get overwhelmed quickly. If there's all 6 of your guys in one place, you have more options. More people with med kits are available. More people that have different options for dealing with the threat are available to do whatever they need to do. It's just better to keep them together, even if it feels like you're wasting the potential. Tip number 4 is you can mix and match armor types for any class. The eagle-eyed among you may have noticed that our assault soldier Ryan here is actually wearing a sniper helmet. And the reason why is because different pieces of armor give different benefits and have different drawbacks. Now, your standard Odin armor, if we look at it, is pretty vanilla stuff. It gives you armor of 20, no speed or perception bonuses, no stealth or accuracy bonuses. It's just armor protection. Same with the helmet. The leg armor for the Odin set, I believe, gives you a +1 speed boost. Other than that, it's also just 20 armor. So why would we want to put a sniper helmet on Ryan here? Well, because the sniper helmet has different factors. It's got less armor. You're giving up some protection. You have 14 armor instead of 20. But look what you're gaining. You get +5 perception, which means you can spot enemies a little bit farther away. That's not usually too much of an issue, but at nighttime it could be. You gain +3 stealth, which again isn't particularly useful. Stealth reduces the range at which the Pandorans can spot you. But look at this, 8% accuracy bonus on this Banshee helmet. So this is a choice that I like to make with my own assault troopers. To me, the little bit of loss of protection, having only 14 instead of 20 armor, is worth the trade-off when I get a plus 8% bonus to my accuracy. That reduces the size of the weapon's firing circles, which means that the enemy unit is more likely to have more of its body fitting inside of more of the rings, which means you're going to hit more shots, basically, is the long way around to what I'm trying to say. You're going to have more shots hit with that plus 8% accuracy, and you're going to do more damage to the Pandoran for just a little bit of loss in armor protection on the head. To me, that's worth it. Now, to you, maybe it isn't. That's up to you for you to decide. But the point is you don't have to equip assault armor on an assault trooper. And the same is true of the other classes as well. There is a good case to be made for taking your heavy, especially if you want to turn your heavy into a melee trooper instead of a heavy cannon specialist, because they get access to melee weapons at level 2 if they take the brawler ability. So you can build a pretty solid melee trooper based off of the heavy, and maybe you don't want this big slow armor. You know, if we look at this stuff, it's good protection, but it's reducing perception, it's reducing stealth, it's reducing accuracy, and it really does kind of slow you down quite a bit. So you'll notice that the chest piece and the leg piece both have a speed penalty as well. So if you're running melee and you got to get in close, well, you don't want this heavy armor, you want the speed. And so you might decide that maybe Odin armor is better for your particular heavy if that's the direction that you want to go. Again, you can switch it out and you can mix and match however you want to get the effects that you want based on the build that you're trying to make. A soldier's class only dictates their abilities. It doesn't dictate their role. So again, you can have a heavy that's actually a melee combatant if you want, or you can, you know, have whatever you want to do, really. Now, some abilities are going to lend themselves better to some roles than others. You wouldn't necessarily want to try to do a long range sniper build with a heavy class, because obviously the sniper is better for that. But you can, you know, look at multiclassing, and that's where things really can get interesting. We're going to talk about multiclassing later in tip number 6. I have heard some interesting things where people will put this Golem B heavy chest armor onto their snipers. Now, why would they want to do that? There's a big accuracy penalty, right? Minus 8% accuracy. Well, because it's got this jet jump ability. And what the jet jump ability is, if you look here, it costs two willpower and 3 action points to activate the ability, but the soldier gets to jump to any square within 20 tiles. And how that's useful for a sniper build is to get the sniper up onto a roof where they've got a good field of view and they're able to shoot down over cover and avoid the enemy's cover a lot better. Now, the thing you want to be careful of, though, is that only the heavy trooper is proficient in jetpacks, okay? And that's part of their base heavy training here. You can see proficiency with heavy weapons, mounted weapons, and jetpack. What that means is if you put this Golem B armor on your sniper, and your sniper is not also a heavy with multiclassing, then your sniper's not proficient in using the jet jump ability. And if you activate it, there is a 50-50 coin flip chance that the ability is going to fumble. If that happens, then the sniper loses the action points and the willpower points, but they don't go anywhere. They're just stuck on the tile that they're on. So if you're going to try that, be very, very aware of that. You can really get your sniper into a bad spot if you're relying on that ability for anything other than initial positioning. Even then, you're potentially losing some turns. But there is maybe an argument to be made where you can get your sniper into this heavy armor and just use it to get him into a good position initially. Now, you're not going to want to try to use it to get him out of a bad position, because if it fails, well, then you're going to be still stuck in that bad situation and you're only going to have 1 action point left. And then your sniper's probably just going to die. It's up to you. It's something to experiment with. If you're going to go that route, I would wait till level 4 when you can multi-class, and then multi-class your sniper as a heavy as well. And then you'll get that jetpack proficiency. Then you can hop all over the battlefield and you'll be good to go. No problem. But if you are going to use the jetpack before you're proficient with it, just be super aware that you got a 50-50 chance that it's not going to activate anytime you try to use it. So look at their abilities and fine tune your soldiers to the roles that you want them to do and give them the armor that boosts those roles. And you'll be able to do some pretty cool things. Tip number 5 is armored vehicles in this game are amazingly good, especially for how much they cost. This is a brand new game. I haven't advanced the timeline. I haven't even queued up research yet. I just started the game and I went straight into the manufacturing tab. And you can see that the Scarab here is available to be built already. You don't have to research it or anything. And this is the Phoenix fighting vehicle. And if we look at it, it seems expensive, right? 480 materials, 60 tech. That's a good chunk of our starting money. And this is a veteran level game. If you get harder level games, you're not even going to have this much starting out. But if you think about what it takes to outfit a new soldier, it's really not that much more. If you consider an assault soldier, for instance, you're going to get that assault soldier. You're going to get them Odin body armor, probably. Full suit of Odin body armor is 325 materials. You're also going to get them a new assault rifle. That's some more. You're probably going to get them maybe a grenade. Maybe they're going to get a mid kit. You're going to get them some extra ammunition. And by the time you're done kitting out that soldier, you're getting pretty close to 480. Now, you're probably not quite going to be that high, but it's really not that much more. And these vehicles gave you a lot of utility and a lot of flexibility that your normal soldiers don't exactly provide themselves. And so the first thing I want to kind of focus on a little bit is the speed. Okay, speed 24 is pretty fast. And the new Jericho version of this thing, which is the Armadillo, is even faster at 28, and the Synedron Espida is speed 32. Hit points 900, and the Armadillo has 1250. Both vehicles have an average of 31 armor, but that's a little bit deceptive because they have armor on the wheels and on the back at level 20 armor, but the front is level 60. So hitting this thing from the front, it takes a lot to chew through it, to get through 60 points of armor and then also start chewing into those hit points. There's not a lot of things that can really do that very effectively until some of that armor starts getting shredded. So that makes these vehicles incredibly durable. You also notice they have a capacity here, capacity of 4. That means these guys can carry 4 soldiers internally. And those soldiers are completely protected. They can't be targeted. They can't be hit. Explosions don't hurt them or anything. They're 100% safe inside this vehicle as long as the vehicle is intact. And so that's one of the things that really makes these things great. And we'll show that in a few minutes when we see these things in action. But to be able to move all of your soldiers at this higher speed and get them across the battlefield can be the difference between a successful mission and a fail mission. Good firepower on these things as well. The missile turret here has a blast damage of 80, shred of 20, fires 2 missiles. Effective range is 40 tiles. Now, most of the maps that you're going to be fighting on are only 48 tiles by 48 tiles. And so this thing can hit pretty much anywhere on the map. And so that's really effective. Blast radius is 3.5, costs 3 action points to fire the weapon though, so you're not going to move very far when you fire it. The new Jericho version has, instead of missiles, it has a Gauss turret, which is basically just a big machine gun. It only costs 2 action points to fire. It fires 8 rounds, but at really short range. So we'll look at the Armadillo here in just a second. So some of the downsides to these things is that they're big. So they take up 3 soldier slots in your airplanes. And maybe you think, well, maybe that's not worth it. It is. It's worth it. These things give your remaining soldiers that you're bringing into the fight a level of protection that is pretty much unparalleled. And so not having the other 3 soldiers is made up for by this, how tough this thing is and how fast it is and how versatile. It's big in another respect in that it's a 3x3 tile vehicle on the map. And so there are some places where it can't go. For the most part, it's going to smash over cover and obstacles and stuff like that. It'll just drive right through them. But there are some things that it cannot break through. We'll see that on the map too. But trees, rocks, buildings for the most part. It can't really drive through sometimes. So it is possible to get them stuck in a place where they can't really get go forward anymore. You have to kind of turn around and go backward and go back the way you came and look for a different direction to get to where you're going. But that's not usually too bad. So let's go ahead and see one of these things in action on an actual mission and kind of see some other tips and how these things fight. So we're in a mission now. This is from a game that I've been playing recently. This is legendary difficulty. A couple of things we've already talked about. Things like obstacles really aren't a problem for it. So you can see it is 3 tiles wide. It's pretty big. But if you drive over like this obstacle here, you can see it just smashes it and it's really no problem. Now there are things it can't drive over, right? It can't go over this rock, can't go through these trees over here. It can't go into the buildings, okay? Or it can't smash through the building walls. So you do have to kind of be careful in some places because you can get it stuck, right? So if we were to come into this area here, there's just no way we could go any further. We would have to turn around and go back out and find another way around. So that's a concern. It's not a major concern, but it is something to keep in mind. If we kind of pull this guy forward just a little bit and we turn him in this direction, and now we select one of our soldiers here, we can see that we get this little square in the back here, which means this guy, as we saw earlier, has a carry capacity of 4 soldiers. So we can take this soldier, move them right up to that square, and we get the option to get into the vehicle. Okay, now this is going to lead to a little bit of trickery that we can do, and I'm going to take just a second here and I'm going to load these guys up into the vehicle because I want them to be I'm going to go to the next turn because I want them to have their full hit point, their full action points, so that I can show you. But there is a way that you can still use your soldiers while they're protected inside the vehicle. So let me just get these guys going here. Okay, now one thing you'll note, these guys made, moves to get into the vehicle. It didn't cost anything to get in, and now the vehicle still has all of its movement points to spend yet too. So we can actually run the vehicle all the way up to about here. Well, we could go further, but I happen to know there's bad guys on the other side of this wall here. So we're gonna just kind of do this, and we're just gonna kind of do this so that we're faced in the right direction. So we've got at least this guy here. There might be one other guy. No, just him. Okay. So if we look at the info on this thing, like I was saying, the armor on the front of this thing is really thick. 60 armor on the front, 30 on the rear. The sides are 40 each. The tires are 20 each. So that's really good armor protection, especially on that front. You'll also notice they're immune to pretty much every type of special damage out there. Fire, virus, poison, daze, psychic damage, all just shrug off. It doesn't do anything to these vehicles or to anything inside of the vehicles either. So that's a good thing. Poison's no longer a problem. Fire's no longer a problem. You just drive right through it. It's no big deal. So we're going to park here. We don't have enough action points to fire our gun at this guy here. He's going to take a shot at us, and that's okay. And this is a mission that's a rescue mission. So we've got these troops up here that are guys that we're trying to rescue. They're already engaged, right? This is a legendary difficulty game. So these guys start out in really bad trouble. They're firing at some kind of a Pandoran here, but there's going to be more coming for them. Now, if we had to run after these guys on foot, we wouldn't have gotten nearly as close to these guys as we are now, and they would probably be in a lot of trouble. The Pandorans haven't had a chance to activate yet. I don't know if they killed him or not, but we're going to find out here. And but the point is if we were trying to run and save these guys, we wouldn't be nearly as far forward as we are now, and they're already taking hits, you can see. So by the time we got in there on foot, they'd probably mostly be dead. That guy just got mind controlled by a mind fragger, so now he's going to join in and start shooting his buddies up. Oh, Sarthron's going to run from us here. I'm going to take a few shots. Oh, here comes a grenade. All right, so he shredded some armor, did a little bit of damage to our turret. The armor on the top isn't quite as good, and a few grenades can take out that gun, so that's something to be aware of. But it's still pretty good. See, this guy's got a disabled head already. His virus is damaged, so he's going to be losing willpower points and panicking. So you can see, I mean, this is just the first turn. We've moved as far as we could, and there's nothing we can do to help them out. little more damage. You'll notice our damage meter hasn't hardly moved at all. We've taken 60 damage, 63 damage total out of our 1,250 available. So, all right. So first thing I would kind of want to show you is, and if we were really trying to win this mission, we'd be going up to help those guys. But I want to kind of show you the vehicle's abilities first. One that I want to show, this isn't a combat ability, but something that's going to be important to you before we get into the combat ability, is if you go to your soldier down there and you hit their inventory, you'll notice the armadillo also has an inventory boxes. And so the armadillo has no limit to how many things you can put in it. It doesn't have a weight limit. It doesn't have an item limit. As far as I know, you can just keep putting things in there. And that's going to be important on your missions where you're collecting supplies off the battlefield and going from crate to crate, because normally you can only carry out what your soldiers can carry. With the vehicle there, you're no longer limited by that, and you can empty all of those chests, and you don't have to pick and choose what's important to you. So that's really good. So you can just access that from the soldier's inventory itself. They can move stuff back and forth. It's really no big deal. They can it's just available space for you. So take advantage of that. Okay. First thing I want to show you is the gun on the armadillo, because it's quite powerful. Now that we're right up in this guy's face, you can see that the accuracy isn't as big of a problem. And this Arthron Scourge is going to die a horrible, horrible death. And he's dead. Now, he didn't have much armor or much in the way of hit points either, so that wasn't maybe totally a fair test, but you can see it can do quite a bit. Now, what we're not really going to be able to do, we could try and take another we even moved, so we can't even take another shot. And we've still got this guy here lobbing grenades at us, which is still a problem. But that brings us to our next trick with our soldiers. So what we can do is we can drive our vehicle to here, and then we can move it one more square in this direction just to make sure that we're getting the right angle here. We need to get turned around here. So we don't have that extra square moment. That's right. This will work where we're at. What we can do is we can access our soldiers that are here inside the vehicle, and they can get out of the vehicle for 2 action points. So she's going to appear right here. Gets out. She's got 2 action points left. Now, it doesn't cost anything to get back in. You can see we can enter the vehicle. There's no action point cost here. So what we can do is we can get our soldier out. She can fire her weapon at this guy. And boom, he's dead. We don't have to worry about that grenade coming from him anymore. And then when she's done, she's spent her action points. Now we just get right back into the vehicle. And she's perfectly safe again. And we can continue to do this. Right now, we're not going to get a great angle on anybody. We could get our sniper out and see if we can take a crack at that other Arthron up there. So with the sniper, it's 3 action points to fire. We've already spent 2, so we only have 2 left. But the snipers have the quick aim ability at level 3. So we're going to just spend the willpower points to do that. And then we have line of sight. So we're going to just zoom in here. It's not a great shot, but maybe we can get the... no, we're not going to be able to get it. We're going to hit the armadillo instead. So unfortunately, we can't do it. So we wasted a little bit of willpower points there. Not a big deal. We just get back into the vehicle, and all of our soldiers are still perfectly safe. And we've moved as far as we can. Our guys can't really do much else, so we can end the turn and the game continues. So those are some of my tips and tricks for the different vehicles. They really are incredibly good. They're very tough. They're very mobile. They offer a lot of utilities. They do cost you a few soldier slots on your mission, but I think they're very well worth it. And in the higher level difficulty games like Legendary and Heroic, they're almost a must-have because your soldiers start out so weak and with so few hit points. A vehicle is a great way to round out your squad. It's a great way to get that second squad going. Because you only have to have 3 soldiers with it. So you can have your vehicle plus 3 soldiers, or if your vehicle gets damaged and needs repairs, you can run with 6 soldiers, or you can even get, 2 vehicles. There are missions, at least in the higher level difficulties, where you can get them for free. I didn't actually build this particular armadillo myself. I found an exploration site that had it. I just had to deploy my troops and find it on the map and then get in and drive away with it. So this particular one was free. So sometimes that's the case too. But they're really great, and I highly, highly recommend that you utilize them because they're going to keep your soldiers safe and make sure that they come home at the end of the day. All right, tip number 6, multi-classing soldiers. It really improves their flexibility, and you're going to want to do it if you can. And I say if you can because on the higher level difficulties, it really is quite a bit more difficult to spend this 50 skill points at level 4 to do it. You're not getting the skill points from the missions that you get at the lower levels. You only get 5 per mission on legendary. So by the time you get to level 4, you're probably not going to be in a situation where you're going to have the 50 skill points to spend, because your soldiers not only get fewer skill points, but they start out with lower strength, lower willpower, and you need to get those built up too. So a lot of your skill points are going into your attributes instead of your abilities here. But at the lower levels, you're going to have plenty of skill points, and it's going to be an option with just a little bit of planning ahead on a veteran game. You can get them multi-classed at level 4 without too much trouble at all. So the question is whether or not you want to do it. And almost always the answer is going to be yes, because it increases the flexibility of your soldiers immensely. Depending on what other classes you train into, that'll be determined by kind of what role you want the soldier to play. But these classes really do mix well together. First thing that we're going to look at, and I'm not going to go too deep into it because I do want to make an actual full-length video just on this, and it gets pretty complex if you really start digging into it. But just a few highlights, some of my favorites. My favorite combination of the basic soldiers, and I'm only going to talk about the basic classes. I'm not going to talk about the faction classes today. Again, I'll do another video on that. But of the 3, the assault, the sniper, and the heavy, my favorite combination is the assault plus the sniper. And that can go either direction, whether you're starting out as either class, pairing with the other one. It really grants a lot of flexibility and a lot of ability to put a lot of damage out on the field really quickly. And kind of one of the reasons why that is if we look at the sniper class itself, they have this ability called quick aim, which is, in my opinion, one of the very best abilities in the entire game. The action point cost of the next shot with a proficient weapon is reduced by 1. This is huge, especially for an assault trooper that has weapons that only cost 2 to fire to begin with, because if you want to dump the willpower points into doing it, you can fire that assault rifle or that shotgun 4 times. And that is a lot of damage, especially if you're right up next to somebody with a shotgun. That's a ton of damage, and it's going to be really, really glorious. So definitely this ability helps everybody, but especially the assault trooper. Also, the Master Marksman ability, where you get a 30% increase in accuracy while there's no spotted enemies within 10 tiles of you. This happens more than you would think with your assault troopers, unless you're really flinging them out in front with their shotgun and really getting up in the faces of the Pandorans. 10 tiles isn't that far. And the accuracy of the assault rifle anyway makes it not necessary to get that close to things all the time. And when you're getting that bonus 30% accuracy, if you're 10, 12, 15 tiles away, that's just a lot more hits that you're going to get. And so this is a great ability to have too. Marked for Death just helps everybody. So does Weak Spot. Disabling a body's armor, disabling a body part also removes that body's armor. Both of those things are really great for everybody. So that's awesome. This is a really great pairing. And if we kind of flip it around really quick and we look at how the assault helps the sniper, kind of the highlights. Return fire with a sniper rifle. The sniper tends to have really good perception anyway, because they get bonuses from the equipment that they wear. So that's an even longer range that they can shoot back from. And the sniper rifle is very accurate, and it's probably going to hit most of the time on that return fire. And it's going to do a lot of damage. Even if the target is armored, it's going to do damage because it's got so much punch to it. So this is a really great ability for the sniper to have. Dash is good too. Extra mobility never hurts. Again, ready for action. This is an awesome ability, and this is an awesome ability for anybody because you can do some really interesting things with it. Aside just being able to reload your weapon for free, which is pretty huge, inventory actions for free gets really interesting in some situations. The obvious thing is when you're on the missions where you're doing the supply runs and you're just picking up the supplies out of the crates on the battlefield as quickly as you can, not having to spend that 1 action point to open the crate and move the stuff out of it is really big. You're in a hurry anyway because you got an unlimited number of Pandorans coming after you, and you're just trying to gather as much as you can and get out. So not having to pay that extra action point is pretty handy. But where this really gets interesting is your soldier with the ready for action ability can stand next to another soldier. And when they access the inventory, they also see that second soldier's inventory and their ready slots. And so you can start doing some kind of interesting things. Like you can have your assault soldier with this ability reload a weapon for the other guy, or put a grenade in their ready slot, or a med pack in their ready slot, or whatever. And so you can kind of be an extra set of hands for that other person, and it's not costing you any action to do it. This gets really interesting if you've got a heavy kitted out to be like a grenade specialist, because that guy can start throwing grenades out and you can just keep handing him more and keep handing him more until he's out of action points, and it works pretty well. So onslaught, allies within 10 recovers 2 action points. That's of limited use for a sniper, but situationally it's still good. And then rapid clearance, recover 2 action points for each enemy killed. This is great for a sniper because the sniper is going to be killing some stuff usually. And so getting those 2 action points back is really great, especially if you're doing that killing with a pistol and quick aim that you didn't pay for an action point for. All of a sudden you've got 2 more action points, and that can really get you out of a sticky situation. If you're kind of surrounded by worms and you're getting low on action points, you can activate rapid clearance, and you can kill a couple of those worms, and all of a sudden you've got 4 more action points you can use to move away from those worms. So it's really good ability for the snipers to have too. So that's my favorite pairing. My second favorite pairing is the heavy with the sniper. And so just some highlights from that. This one is less good, but it's still great. The brawler doesn't really help. Warcry is okay for a sniper. If you're getting stuff that close, you're probably in big trouble, so it might need to be used anyway. Boom Blast doesn't really help a sniper so much either, but the Inspire ability does, because killing an enemy grants the extra willpower. And then the Rage Burst with a sniper rifle. It's so accurate, even at a good distance. You're going to land probably 4 of the 5 shots usually. And so that's a good amount of damage that your sniper's putting out there. And then if you flip it around, the heavy abilities, the sniper abilities help the heavy out somewhat too, because you got your extreme focus, which reduces your overwatch cost. They also gain proficiency with handguns, your heavy does, which we've kind of talked before. The heavy doesn't have a lot of nice ways to spend a single action point, and having a handgun on your heavy is one of the ways that you can kind of make that a little bit better. You can have a handgun on your heavy even if they're not proficient with it, but firing a weapon you're not proficient with halves the accuracy or the effective range of that particular weapon. With handguns, it's not great to begin with, and so this really makes it much nicer. And then they get the extreme focus as well, which means they can take the free Overwatch with that handgun, even if they've already run out of action points. That's great. Quick aim is great for everybody. Getting your cannon down to 2 rounds, 2 action points to fire is really great. Getting your grenade launchers down. If you combine a grenade launcher with Boom Blast and then this ability, you're chucking grenades for free. Well, this has to be direct fire, I think. No, just proficient. So you're firing your grenades for free as long as you want to keep activating this thing too. So that's really awesome. Master Marksman for a heavy is borderline okay. The problem is even at 10 tiles out, that cannon isn't super accurate except against really big things. If you're right on the edge, 10, 11, 12 tiles out, this plus 30% accuracy is probably going to help you out. Beyond that, you're probably still going to be missing a decent amount if you're trying to shoot from that range. Those machine guns and heavy cannons really are intended to be kind of up close and personal weapons. So this is okay. It's not the best. Weak spot, again, you're going to be definitely disabling parts, and that's just great. And then the Marked for Death helps everybody, so that's a great ability to have. So the heavy and the sniper, they pair up really well. It's mostly because the heavy can utilize the sniper's abilities pretty well. If you already have a sniper and you're trying to pick another class, you might want to go assault instead. But if you're trying to multi-class your heavy, then sniper is definitely a great choice to have. The third pairing is the assault plus the heavy. And this is one I've kind of struggled with because I found that not having the quick aim ability of the sniper class kind of hurts both the assault and the heavy when it comes to really putting out a lot of damage. But there is a case for this that I can make that's really, really exciting and really kind of nasty. And that is if you want to be sort of a dedicated grenadier. So the assault soldier from the heavy is going to gain the abilities to use the grenade launcher, and it's going to get the boom blast at level 5 if we look at the heavy here. The boom blast, the action points cost of grenades and other explosive weapons, which means missile launchers and grenade launchers, is reduced by 1, and their range is increased by 50% until the end of the turn. Now, it's pretty expensive to activate. It's 5 willpower. But if you combine this with the ready for action ability, all of a sudden you're just going to be able to start chucking grenades out there without worrying about how many you have. As long as they're in your inventory, you can keep readying them and keep throwing them, as long as you have action points to do it. So you could throw 4 grenades out at a decent range, or you could fire that grenade launcher a couple of times, and that really becomes a good thing. And then you've also got your dash ability, which is going to kind of pair up with that a little bit, and you're going to be able to move a little bit farther, which is awesome. Allies within 10 times. Yeah, this is good for everybody anyway. Rapid clearance. Anything you kill is going to get 2 action points back for you. If you're chucking a bunch of grenades out, you're going to kill some stuff, and you're going to get some extra action points from that. So they pair up really well as grenadier. As a direct fire, I'm really a lot less excited about them. Return fire with a cannon isn't great because the cannon's got such poor accuracy and the machine gun has such poor accuracy. If they're more than a few tiles away from them, you're probably not going to hit them very much, and so you're just going to end up burning a bunch of ammunition. One of the other things that really gets pretty good with this pairing is the Rage Blast, though, and this really, really applies if you've got an assault rifle. If you've got an assault trooper with a shotgun that also has this thing. You get them up next to a Pandoran, you activate Rage Burst with that shotgun, and there's going to be a pile of shredded meat in front of you, and it's going to be glorious. So there's some exciting things, but they're a little more specialized with this pairing. And so that's kind of my least favorite of the pairings. Really, if you can pair up with the sniper class, or if you have a sniper, pairing with the assault is just a lot more flexible. But if you want to kind of go into one of these more specialized builds like a grenadier or a crazy shotgun, up close guy, this can be kind of a cool idea too. So I'll let you experiment with it. Those are my thoughts on it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you've got some combinations that you like, or if you think I've missed something, definitely throw it in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. Tip number 7, basic grenades aren't that great. Now, that's not to say they're useless or worthless, because that's not true either. But there are some things that you kind of need to know about them, and you do kind of have to use them in a certain way to really get the most benefit out of them. And even then, they have some drawbacks. But let's start out. Let's just look at the grenade to start out with. If we look at this thing, it does 50 blast damage and shreds 10 armor. Its effective range is 16. Blast radius is 2.5 tiles. So it's got a total 5 tile circle area that it affects. Costs 2 action points to throw it. Only uses 1 hand. So I've set up a little test here. We've got our crash test dummy here who's going to be our target. And this soldier here has a grenade. Now, we're going to take the grenade and we're going to go ahead and line it up and we're going to throw it. I'm even going to put it just a little bit in front of the soldier instead of throwing it right at their feet, okay? Because the grenade's blast damage is actually going to try and target each area of the soldier, both arms, both legs, torso, head. And so if you put it just a little bit further away, usually it spreads its damage more and it shreds armor more. And that's really one of the good things that grenades are best at, is shredding that armor off. 10 shred is really great. So let's go ahead and throw this again a little bit in front of him instead of right at his feet. And boom, there we go. So 30 damage, 30 equipment damage on the Ares, 50 armor shredded. Okay, so let's look at our crash test dummy now. If we go into the info panel on this guy, we did 30 damage like it said. And how that works is it takes of all the body parts that it hits, the least armor that it hit. So in our case, our trash test dummy has Odin armor, which is 20 in every location. So it was 20 damage subtracted from the 50. It did 30 hit points damage. You'll see that it did shred a whole bunch of different places. It missed one arm, didn't do anything to the torso, mostly because it hit the rifle. I think what was would have hit the torso hit the rifle instead, and that's okay. Both arms, both legs got shredded, 10 armor points, and took 30 damage points. Now, this is a decent amount of damage, but we haven't really necessarily gotten that close to killing this particular enemy, if it was an enemy. All of these hit point levels here mean less, and they don't mean nothing, but they mean less because it's not affecting any combat ability that this soldier has. So we've thrown a grenade out. We didn't really do much damage. We've reduced the hit points on several of the body locations, but we didn't disable anything, and we shredded some armor. So the shredding of the armor is probably the best thing that we accomplished there, unless we're going to throw another grenade. Right now, we could throw another grenade, and if it hits the arm or the leg, it's going to do 40 points of damage this time because we've already shredded 10. So there's 10 left. 10 minus 50, or 50 minus 10 is 40. So we're going to do 40 points of damage. We're going to disable that arm if we hit it. We're going to disable the head if we hit it. We're going to disable, that's it. The two legs still won't be disabled. In this case, disabling the arm, now that might effectively take the enemy out, right? And I'll talk about that in a little bit later point. But the point is, you're only going to do about another 40 points of damage here. So that's still 140 damage, or 130 damage left. And you've thrown two grenades at it. Maybe you've taken its arm out. Maybe you've taken its head out if you hit those spots again. But maybe you haven't. And now you've used up 4 action points and you still haven't killed the enemy. So would it have been better to just take 2 shots with your assault rifle? In most cases, probably that would be the case. And that's why I kind of say that grenades aren't that great. Now, again, they're great at shredding armor. And if that's what you need to do, awesome. They're really good at that. And you should use them for that, for sure. I don't want to leave you with the impression that grenades are useless, because they're not. And I do carry grenades on my soldiers. But you really have to kind of pick and choose how you're going to use them. And in this particular mission that we're on here, this is one of the really, really early missions when you first find the Disciples of Anu Haven. In this particular mission, you get a whole bunch of these worms rushing at you. And they kind of tend to group up when they get into these little kind of narrow areas as they get closer to you. And so in those cases, maybe a grenade is better to take out 3 worms or 4 worms than spending the ammo and the action points to do it with a weapon, right? With a assault rifle, for instance. Maybe that's a better use. But generally speaking, if you're not shredding armor, you might actually be better off just shooting your weapon rather than throwing a grenade. Now, another edge case, there will be times when you can see where a Pandoran is, but you don't have direct line of sight. And that'll show up as like this little red target ping kind of moving around back here behind this wall. We don't have direct line of sight, but maybe we can still get some damage on that guy by chucking a grenade over the building, and that would be okay too. So use them, but use them, when it makes sense to use them, and always kind of always kind of ask yourself, am I better off firing my primary weapon than throwing the grenade? Most of the time that answer is going to be yes, not always. Another one of the problems with grenades is at the end of the mission, they don't auto replenish. You have to actually queue them up in production and build them. They're not instant like ammunition and med kits are. And so if you are throwing a bunch of grenades around and you have to replace 4, 6, 8 grenades at the end of the mission, now you've got a choice to make. Do you stop producing that manticore or that scarab or that body armor suit for your next soldier to build those grenades? If you're replacing 10 grenades, that's 20 hours of manufacturing that you just added to your queue. Or do you wait for that build that you got going to finish before you replenish your grenade supply? So you're going to have a choice to make there, and it's not instantaneous. So that's one thing. The other thing is you've only got so many inventory slots, so you can only carry so many of these things. Now, normally, coming into these missions, you're going to have med kit, you're going to have extra ammunition for your primary weapon. That's going to leave you with maybe 6 grenades that you can carry, which probably is a lot. You probably wouldn't want to throw that many anyway. But the point is you can only carry so many of these things, and until you have some special abilities, you have to spend an action point to get it ready to throw too, right? And so unless you've got 2 equipped on your bar already, you're only going to have 1 to throw, because that's going to take 2 action points, and then to ready your next one, it's going to cost you an action point to do that, and you're not going to be able to throw it. So unless you got 2 ready to go, you're not throwing 2, and even then it's only if you've moved. Now there are class abilities, we talked about those a little bit in the previous tip on multiclassing, that help out with that a lot, right? Rapid deployment helps with that, and boom blast helps with that, and some other things. But just for your vanilla soldier who isn't really set to, specialize to use grenades like that, you're only going to get 1 thrown out there anyway. And then again, it's like you've spent your 2 action points. Yeah, maybe you shredded some armor, maybe you did some damage to an arm or a leg, but if you haven't disabled it, you might have been just better off shooting it with your primary weapon. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, they're not useless. I do carry them. I do use them when it's appropriate, but don't become maybe necessarily dependent on them unless you're going to specialize a build for them. And even then, be prepared to be manufacturing them a lot, because they do take time and resources to rebuild. I mean, ammo costs resources as well, but you're spending that extra time to build the grenades that you wouldn't have to spend for your ammo. So it's a consideration as well. Tip number 8, soldiers who aren't proficient with a weapon can still pull the trigger on that weapon. And this is something that you're going to want to kind of realize fairly early on, especially as it applies to handguns, because it is really a good idea to equip all of your soldiers with handguns if you can afford to do it. And so we're still here with the crash test dummy. We've got our heavy trooper here. I don't have a weapon on him yet, so I'm going to move him over here next to our sniper. We're going to go into inventory. We're going to borrow the sniper's handgun here, and that's going to cost us an action point to make that transfer. But that's okay, because it's only 1 to fire it too. So now we have our sniper's handgun in our hot little hands here, and we can go ahead and select it, and we can aim at our crash test dummy. Now, we're not very far away from that crash test dummy, and we still don't have a very good shot, right? So there's pretty good here, but there's still a significant chance that we're going to be missing, because there's quite a bit of room on the left side there, and there's a bit of room on the right side of the circle there too, where it could possibly miss. And we're only 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5 squares away roughly. So it's not the best thing. If you're firing a weapon without proficiency, I mentioned this in another one of the tips, the effective range of that weapon is halved, and which effectively means the accuracy is halved. And then we're also taking accuracy penalties from our armor as well. So it's not a great shot, but the thing about it is we can take the shot, and we happen to hit that time. And we can take that shot every time, and the weapon will fire just fine. So it's not a terrible idea, even if you're not proficient, like I said, to have these weapons equipped on all of your soldiers if you can afford to get them. It just offers you that extra option. You have a single action point left. You're kind of in a little bit of a spot. You need to put that extra little bit of damage out. You've got it with you, and it's an option to use it. Now, that does not exactly hold true with melee weapons, because melee weapons are a little bit different. If you try to swing a melee weapon and you're not proficient with melee weapons, there is a 50-50 chance, just like with the sniper using the jetpack, that you're going to fumble, and that you will spend the action points to swing the weapon, but you actually won't swing it. And so that's something that you have to kind of keep in mind. I don't expect that's probably something you're going to be trying to do anyway, but just bear in mind that it doesn't quite work the same way with melee weapons as it does with ranged weapons. And that's, you could end up in really a bad spot if you're dependent, if you're kind of depending on that melee weapon to get you out of trouble, and you fumble it, well, you've got a big problem then. So, but ranged weapons, you can shoot them all day long as long as you got ammo. Your accuracy isn't going to be very good probably, but the weapon will fire. It won't fumble. It'll fire every time. And so that's definitely something to think about, is kitting all of your soldiers out with at least a handgun. The other reason to carry a handgun is because if you get an arm disabled, if your trooper's arm gets disabled, you can't fire that two-handed weapon anymore, whether it's the cannon, the sniper rifle, the assault rifle, shotgun, whatever, but you can still fire that handgun. So if you've got a handgun equipped, you're still in the fight, even if it's at a limited capacity. Tip number 9, you don't always have to completely kill an enemy. There are a lot of times where just disabling a weapon or a couple of weapons on that enemy is sufficient. And so I've started this particular mission. I've got kind of a new squad here, but we're a turn in. They're in position now. I've kind of got them, most of them in cover, and we've got this Arthron coming at us. Now, this guy's not very tough, and so this is maybe a little bit of a trivial example, but if we pull our sniper up just a little bit here, and we take a shot, line up our shot. Like I said, this isn't a great necessarily example because this sniper rifle is powerful enough to just kill this guy outright. But let's say, just for sake of argument, that this guy is a little bit tougher. He's a little more evolved. He's got more hit points. He's got armor, and we can't just kill him outright with one shot. And he's coming at us, and we've got some other stuff coming at us that we need to deal with this guy. What we can do instead of killing him is we can just target his one weapon here. And if you look at these guys, you can see in their information screen what weapons they have, right? This guy, again, only 110 hit points. He's got the single claw for his pinchers for his weapon. So that's his only weapon. So if we take that out, let's see if we can hit it. We got a good chance, but it's not a guarantee here. Let's see what happens. Yeah, we got it. Okay, so we've taken his claw out, and now he's got no more weapons left. So let's see what happens now, because he's pretty much done at this point. So we're going to end the turn. We've got a Mist Sentinel here. He's going to do his thing. And we've got another Arthron back here that's going to come up in advance on us. He's not going to get to us, though, so that's okay. He saw him flash right down into here. Here comes a Mind Fragger. That's fine. Okay, look at this guy. He's running now. He doesn't have any way to hurt us. He doesn't have any way to attack. He's bleeding. And what he's going to do, he's just going to keep running until he moves off the edge of the map. And that counts as a kill in missions where you have to kill everybody. This isn't one of those particular missions. But if you have to kill all the enemies on the screen, on the map, them running off the map counts as a kill. And so that's a trick that you can kind of keep in mind if you got an enemy that only has a single weapon, especially, you don't necessarily have to kill them outright. And if you manage to disable all their weapons, don't waste the time and the ammo finishing them off. They're not going to hurt you. Just ignore them and keep moving on. Everything's going to be just fine if you just leave them be. They'll bleed out, or if they can, they'll run off the map, and you'll be fine either way. If for some reason you do have to go back later and kill them, then do it after everything else has been neutralized and your troops aren't in any danger. Then you can spend the extra actions to clean up anything that needs to be cleaned up. So that's tip number 9. Again, just disabling the enemy is often good enough. So keep that in mind. That'll save you time and resources sometimes on your missions. Okay, tip number 10, last one, guys. The AI for the friendly soldiers in this game is not necessarily that great. And so you want to try to get control of these friendly soldiers yourself as quickly as you can safely do so. Now, don't go throwing your guys into a bad situation to try and get control of them. It's not really worth it. They're nice to haves. They're not usually a necessity, and you don't want to jeopardize your own troops to get them. But if you can safely get control of these guys, it's a lot better. And I'm going to kind of try and show you why here. If you did want to get control of this guy, all you have to do is walk into this circle and you'll gain control of him. Same with this guy over here. Anywhere in the white circle, and that soldier is now under your control. But I'm going to just let the AI go against the enemies on this particular one without helping out, just to kind of as an experiment to see how it does against its own enemies. And so I'm just going to leave my guys where they're at. We're just going to end the turn, and we're going to let things happen here. Disciples of Anu's turn. They didn't even do anything. Here comes some Pandorans. Comes a Triton. He just ran, I think. I don't think he's going to do anything else. Yeah, he's done. Another Triton going up on the upstairs. Comes an Arthron. He's just gonna take a couple of swings at this guy who didn't do anything. And comes another Triton. He's gonna jump down there. He's gonna probably hit that same guy. No, didn't have enough action points. All right, so these guys, because they didn't have any enemies in sight, just did nothing. They didn't do anything on their turn. This assault trooper got hit, and he's in pretty bad shape now because he's up against two enemies. This guy over here, he's got us around him, but since we're not helping, that's not great. This guy right here, he's still just sitting there. He's got a Triton about ready to eat his lunch, and another one up here. And there might be more yet coming. And so you can see it's not really making, I mean, it didn't do anything. It didn't make any decisions this turn. Now that there's some Pandorans in sight, we're just going to let it roll and see what it does again. Now at least it can see some stuff. So he just kills a guy. That's probably his best decision because he's not going to outrun him. Okay, that's good. But that's very basic. Okay, this guy's going to come in and finish him off. That's actually not too bad. That's a good decision. Help your buddy out. And these guys will heal each other too, if they are carrying med kits and they need it. Here's an assault trooper that's doing nothing. We still have somebody in that other building. It's probably a civilian. Oh, here comes that other Arthron. Not exactly sure where he came from. That's got to be a civilian there. Because they're not moving. The civilians in this game won't move on their own. You have to actually get control of them and move them toward the evac zone if that's what you're going to do. The other option is just kill all the Pandorans. There's another civilian in there. He just takes the hit, doesn't do anything. All right, so they killed one. There's still one here. This guy's still hurting. These two will gang up on him and kill him. That's not a problem. But they're not really working together that well. And so, ideally you would be helping out, and we're not in this case, just so that we can see what's going on with the AI. But they have civilians over here that are in trouble and they don't care. They're doing what they can, but they don't have any real situational awareness, which makes them not very effective fighters. So again, get control of them. You're going to make much better decisions than the AI is going to. And the AI seems to be particularly bad with the berserkers, especially because it'll usually just fling the berserker at the nearest target, and if it doesn't get there, it just crouches down and waits for the enemy to come over and attack it. And if there's more than one there, it's probably just going to die. And even if there isn't more than one, it might end up dying because a lot of times, like the Tritons and stuff, he's not going to one-shot them because they have 180 hit points. His hammer only does 160. And so he's probably not going to get 2 swings in unless that Triton runs right up to him. But even then, usually what they'll do is they'll run up, they'll hit you, and they'll take a few steps away. So it's just, the AI is just not great. And it tends to make some really catastrophically bad decisions, especially with melee units like the Berserker. So that's the last tip. Get control of these guys. You're going to do a better job with them than the AI is. But don't sacrifice your own soldiers to get control of these guys. Your own troops are much more valuable. You've put more time and resources into training them up. These guys, they're just nice to haves if you can get a hold of them. But like I said, don't jeopardize your own troopers to do it. That's going to do it, guys. That's Jeric's top 10 tips. And if you have learned anything from this video, or if you've enjoyed it, go ahead and hit that like button for me. I'd really appreciate it. It really helps out the channel with the YouTube algorithm. Consider leaving a subscribe if you haven't. You get more videos as I put them out. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.